Hello plant friends, my name is Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. Today we're going to be talking about everything I know about desert roses, and this is a 1-year review. So this is one of my desert roses. I don't know its name. This is the other one, so it's different colors. And then last but not least, this poor little unfortunate soul. So I'm going to show you or tell you kind of what all I do to take care of them. So this is one that I've had for a good while. I've had this one for a year, and I think I've had the other one that's like the two tones for at least a year and a half. So you can see it kind of like flares out, and I've never pruned this one. I have never learned how to, so I haven't done it yet. So this one just has the single branch going up, and they tend to have flowers on new growth. So at the very point here where the growth is coming up from, that's where the flowers come out from. And you can try to count the flowers. There's quite a few. And I really don't know if this is a graft or not. Like, it is some kind of a hybrid. Like, it's not just your everyday average desert rose. And it is beautiful. This is the first time I've had it bloom. So both of these I've had for over a year. So it takes like a year for them, I guess, to take the strength or be mature enough to bloom. It also could be because I just figured out what they really need. So I have them in pots now that are kind of small, but I had them in these really large pots in front of my house on either side of my door. They got full sun, and then I had just a ton of succulents. The soil, the pots were really large, 15 inches deep each one, but I put a pot larger than this upside down inside of it, and then put perlite and soil in there so that way they wouldn't get root rot. So it looked like it was a huge pot, but half of it was empty, and that allowed for better drainage. And these were great on my front porch because we had heat indexes of 110 and higher, and these love that. So these can get very large. It just takes a really long time. And the reason that I got into these is because when I was in the Florida Keys, which is where I try to go every summer, they had some. And by they, I mean we went condo touring and we saw some. So theirs were at least 20 or 30 years old. They were significantly larger than this. And they were huge, and they were just covered in flowers. Now, they were not fancy hybrids like this one or the other one, but they were still just as beautiful. So I'm going to tell you kind of, what I've done to care for these. So I'm going to show you this one first. So what happens typically when I get a new desert rose is they do not look very good. So you can see here there's tons of new growth coming out. So it's not the end of the world. But sometimes if they're too dry for too long, they will think it's time to go into dormancy. So they will drop every leaf. That's what this one did. It's not dying or it's not dead yet. The leaves don't turn yellow and fall off. They just fall off. So if they turn yellow, if all the leaves turn yellow and fall off, you likely have root rot, and you know where to go from there. But so they all turned yellow and they all fell off, and now I watered it and it is now putting out new growth everywhere, and it's also dropping leaves occasionally. So I have a really hard time when I get a desert rose in like taking care of it. Like in the winter time, they don't like winter, even though I don't want them to go into dormancy. They don't bloom for me in winter, even though I give them the light and the fertilizers that they need. I think they know that they should be in dormancy. But yeah, they have very few leaves, but they're not like in complete dormancy, if that makes sense. So this one was shipped, and I do know this one. This one's Black Widow. It's going to have black burgundy flowers, double, like this cream and burgundy one here. It's going to be really, really pretty. And as you can see, this one is grafted. Now, I believe these other two are hybrids. But yeah, this one came through the mail, and it just didn't do well. So that's why this one looks like this. But when I get a new desert rose, they're more likely to look like this than the ones I'm showing you right now that are very show-worthy plants. So this one I've had for a longer period of time. So I purchased this one at the beginning of the growing season, and this one was actually purchased at the end. So this one was a clearance plant. The only pests I've had with them are mealybugs, but it's really easy to get them off because they really don't have a lot of places to hide. So yeah, this one's really nice. It's got some branches, and it's even got some branches forming here. These are really cool because if you really wanted to, you could train it like a bonsai because these are pretty flexible. You could do the wires and whatnot. These are full sun plants. So if you do not have a full sun area, like on your porch or outside, the best thing you can do is use one of the GE Par 38 bulbs. The T5 Barrinas that I have in my propagation room are not strong enough for this. Plus, they get so tall that they bump into the actual lights themselves. But with my Par 38, and that's where they're going to be. They're going to be over here in this plant corner come the first freeze. So that's how much light they need. They don't care if it's full sun. Now, you really don't need to have them in part shade. They need to have that full direct overhead sun at like 1 p.m. You can have, I guess, some morning sun they don't have to have, or the setting sun they don't have to have, but that overtop sun they need, direct and full sun. Now, if you have one and it's been inside and you move it directly out into full sun, it may burn, but it will bounce back. I haven't had that happen, but I've heard other people have had it happen. So in terms of watering, you're going to want to water basically whenever you remember, but hopefully you'll remember less often than not, because these don't need to be watered super frequently. Like these, think of like a cactus or a succulent or like some other plant that grows in a really arid area. Like it just really depends. And with all different plants, like I could give you a checklist of all the things that I'm doing to take care of this plant, and your plant could die because of my situation and you know, the air conditioner stripping water from the air and whatnot. All that can create a need for more watering. So yeah, I'll water this one just whenever I remember, which like I said is less often than not. And the soil, now I have had this in just a regular everyday Miracle-Gro unamended potting mix, but I put some perlite in here, and you can see the perlite. And this is just a mix that I've started using pretty much for all my plants. But like I said, before I started amending soil, I still had the same amount of success. So you don't have to worry about that. But I would encourage you to use perlite, and it just is easier to drain. And if you don't have perlite, you could potentially use tree bark or gravel. You basically just want something that when water hits it, it's going to bounce off of it instead of being absorbed. So that's what like fast draining or coarse soil basically means. Because if you soak tree bark, obviously, in water like you do for orchids, or like I do for orchids, it'll stay moist. But if you just like douse it real quick, it'll just run right through. So I've talked about light, water, and soil. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fertilize these. I fertilize everything every 2 to 3 weeks at like a quarter strength or half strength. And when people say half strength, what they're referring to is on the back of the bottle of your fertilizer, there's going to be a list of instructions, and it may say like half a teaspoon per gallon. Well, at half strength, I'm going to put half a teaspoon per 2 gallons. So that way you don't run the risk of over fertilizing. So I really like using the Super Thrive. It's like a quarter of a teaspoon. It's such a small amount. I was able to find some at Lowe's for pretty cheap. And then I use my fertilizer. And I have so many different fertilizers. Like I don't really have the 3 numbers set for just this plant. But I do use a bloom boosting fertilizer, and those, like, there's the organic one from Miracle-Gro that has the purple flower on the box, and it's a black box. It stinks. It's organic. It's great. And then I also have the Schultz droppers. I have the foliage, and then I have the violet blooms. So you can do that. But I would make sure to repot these every year Now, I haven't really figured out if these are heavy feeders or not. Like my alocasias, they're heavy feeders. I need to fertilize them at high strength pretty much with every watering to keep them growing, sending up inflows and sending up really large leaves. And that's how I got all my alocasias to be large like they are. But yeah, you can have a desert rose and have everything, but if they don't have the proper nutrients, they're not going to put out blooms. So yeah, so this one's really pretty. So like I said earlier, they send out blooms from the newer growths, so they're coming out from here. It would be really cool. I anticipate it happening at some point. There's going to be blooms here. And I've seen people have like just a single bloom along like the stalk. So I have only seen these at a local nursery, but I have also seen them at Lowe's. They had these huge, like they were significantly older than these. These I think are maybe 2 or 3 years old, like from the nursery to me, even though I've had them for a year or more. But yeah, they were nice large. You can kind of tell the age by this part here and how like truncated it is and like how much it flares out. But yeah, they were at least like 3 or 4 year old desert roses, but they had something on them, like a pest or a virus or some kind of a blight, and they were all on clearance. So I didn't dare risk, bringing that in because I've just now really succeeded with these two, because before now I really thought that I was going to kill them, but luckily I didn't. Just to recap, that these have really bright light like a par 38 or direct sun. They do not like to freeze. If they lose all their leaves and the leaves did not turn yellow before falling off, the plant probably thinks it's going into dormancy, so you can try to water it to wake it up. And if it's in a cold place, move it somewhere warmer and give it more light. And then from there, it'll start like growing everywhere. It'll just start sprouting new leaves all over the place. You've got all kinds of different blooms. Here, these are doubles. I'm sure there's someone that's more of an expert in desert roses that can tell me the varieties of these because I don't know their names. Oh, I just realized there's 3 reasons you should have these. If you're forgetful, number 1, if you're really forgetful and forget to water plants, this plant is for you. It's just like some of the Hoyas, like they just thrive off of not being watered super frequently. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you have a place that is just so dry and so hot outside, and you are trying to conserve water, these are really attractive and they bloom pretty much all the time once they get what they need. And number 3, they're literally like the cutest little trees and they would make the most perfect bonsai plants. So that's 3 reasons to get a desert rose. If you have more reasons, be sure to comment those below. If you are very much into desert roses and you know what these 2 are called, let me know. So this one's red with a white border around the petals. And it looks kind of like that from the side, if that's important to you. And then this one is burgundy and cream. And it varies on how burgundy and cream they are. Like they are not all exactly the same color mixture, I guess. But yeah, thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. And I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.